What's up, gamers? It's Absurd here, and I was fortunate to spend 50 hours playing the alpha test of PAX DEI, a new sandbox MMO. The alpha was mostly testing the crafting and building systems that I don't engage with in most games, but I did engage with here, a lot. This game was addictive. I had no intention of sinking 50 hours into PAX DEI, but the game is designed to addict you. In this video, I'm going to break down how I spent my 50 hours in-game as a solo player before doing my analysis on PAX DEI's potential to be the next big MMO. Some quick disclaimers. Some of my criticism will be very harsh, which may seem unfair for a game in alpha, but this game has potential. Harsh criticism is necessary to make sure the beta is an improvement. Simping won't change anything. Also, I don't have footage for some of my talking points because I didn't want to record 20 gigs of chopping down trees when 100 megabytes is sufficient for this video. So please bear with me on that. Finally, I played PAX DEI as a solo player wanting to take on a dungeon, and that's how I'm approaching this review as well. With that said, let's get right into talking about how I spent the majority of my time in PAX DEI. Running and gathering. I estimate this time at about 25 hours, which is half my time spent in the game. This map is beautiful and massive. I was impressed by the visual quality and exploration aspect so much at first that I didn't mind spending most of my time running around to find new areas or locate resources, though my enthusiasm waned once I really started focusing on the crafting and building element. Running started to feel like a chore to get the necessary resources like clay or specific ore deposits that were far from home. The gathering itself felt good for small things like plants or rocks that you can just pick up, but chopping down a tree or mining ore required me to click for each swing of my tool. It required my active attention to gather those resources by spamming the left mouse button. Normally in MMOs, crafting will have a progress bar and a lengthy animation, and I'll use that time to manage my inventory, check menus, look something up on the wiki, etc. But gathering in PAX DEI prevents that with gathering that monopolizes your time and attention. It started to feel really bad because chopping down a tree takes a long time, and looking away for even a second was a suboptimal use of that time in the grind to get to the actual content that I wanted to engage with. Gathering takes so long that at one point when I died to fall damage among some cliffs and lost all my ingredients, I spent an hour trying to reclaim those remains, and though it was tedious gameplay, I still think it was a good investment of my time versus gathering and crafting that stuff all over again. Speaking of crafting, I spent about 20 hours engaging with the crafting system. Unlike the gathering, the crafting has some fire and forget mechanics where you can passively cook up ingredients over a long duration and go back to exploring, or others where you just stand at your table and watch the animation or some second monitor content. The animations are pretty long, but you can queue up multiples of the same item to craft at the same time and then walk to the bathroom or grab a drink or whatever. But the issue here is that if you engage with any of the menus or your inventory or anything in the game during those animations, it will finish the current recipe, but the other 20 or so you had queued won't progress. So you literally have to watch every animation or just completely AFK while they finish. This isn't a huge deal, but it's another way I noticed the game was controlling my time and attention. I couldn't browse the map to plan where I might explore next while my dude crafted in the background. I couldn't look at other recipes without interrupting my current crafting queue. The game was telling me, no, pay attention to this until it's done, and then you can plan for the future. And that would be totally fine if it was engaging at all, but it's not, and those recipes are long. A chainmail shirt, for example, requires 8 coarse linen, among other ingredients. So to get that, you need 160 coarse linen string, and to get that, you need a total of 480 flax. So that's nearly 500 of a single resource just for this part of the recipe, if my math is correct. I'm an English major. But that's not to mention the iron and the leather you need for the recipe as well. Now, there is also a chance to fail recipes, and I failed this one 4 or 5 times before it succeeded. My armor smithing was level 8 and the recipe was level 10, so maybe I should have grinded that level up a bit more before trying, but that would have cost resources as well, and I still could have failed the chainmail recipe even at level 10. The point here is that there's no guarantee your recipe will succeed, and failing the recipe does not refund any of the resources. So I ended up spending thousands of raw materials before I got my chainmail, which ended up having the same armor value as my current gambeson at the time, so I didn't even wear it. A little tooltip in the recipe menu with the armor value of the chainmail would have saved me close to 5 hours of wasted effort. Now, if you're in a clan, which I wasn't, gearing up would take far less time because you could have dedicated crafters with each crafting skill and pool your resources together. But as a solo player, I needed to skill up almost all the crafts in order to have a well-rounded setup for combat. And not speaking of combat yet, I spent 10 hours building, which is similar to crafting in that you have to gather resources and often refine those into ingredients for each building recipe. The thing I loved about building is that there is no fail state, or at least no designed fail state. I'll get into that in a minute. But if you want to build a wall and you have the resources, the wall goes up. It feels good. Now, the snapping together of different structures can be pretty janky, and in some instances I spent more time trying to snap a wall into the right place than it took to even make the wall. But the system is still pretty good and very fun. The amount of customization you can do to make unique structures is incredible. Like, look at these amazing buildings other people and clans made. Now, I think mine turned out okay, all things considered, but there were a couple pain points here. You might notice the huge holes in the floor. Those are not by design. I accidentally destroyed those while moving stuff around, and then was unable to rebuild them without destroying everything else in the area and rebuilding from the ground up. So I found a soft fail state in building, but decided to add some ambient lighting instead. It was pretty fun discovering how high I could actually build this structure, but there is a limit, which is probably a good thing. I was still able to build high enough to die from fall damage. Well, most of the time. Overall, I think building is the best system in the current game, though it doesn't serve much of a practical purpose outside of building the crafting stations and storage chests for your ingredients. It will be interesting to see how buildings will affect PvP and other systems in the future. And finally, we can talk about combat. Combat is the core gameplay mechanic of an MMO for me. You go out, explore, kill shit, and get loot so you can kill bigger shit the next time. But that's not the gameplay loop of PAX DEI, at least not in the alpha. Now, this test was not focused on combat at all, and the devs have said that the current combat is a placeholder for the eventual real combat system. But that doesn't change the gameplay loop, which is grind gathering and crafting for hours until you can make a weapon and good enough armor that you can actually survive combat with anything tougher than a boar. So for me, it meant grinding out crafting for hours to even get to the real content of an MMO. Note that I estimate about 5 hours spent on combat. That's about 10% of my playtime actually fighting monsters in an MMO. Now, before I get into some of the specific pain points here, I will say that I was able to solo clear enemy outposts, caves, and even get pretty far into a dungeon. But these are not designed at all for solo play. Not only because the enemies are numerous, but because if you die, you lose all of your gear. Now you can be revived by another player or run back and reclaim that gear. But if you are solo and you die in a dungeon, that means grinding all your equipment back up as strong as it was before to even have a chance at getting back to reclaim the remains. And at that point, is there even a point if you've already replaced everything? Not really. Now you could get lucky and have another random player stumble across your corpse, but don't count on it. So this content definitely intends you to have allies to res you on the spot, which is cool. It is an MMO after all, but I had to try the solo dungeon clear. The core issue with death is that it does not respect your time. It takes so many hours to accomplish anything in this game with crafting that to lose it all by falling off a cliff or having enemies respawn on top of you or something that makes your corpse irretrievable feels really bad and will be a quit moment for many players. I purposefully saved my solo dungeon run till the very end of my time because I knew I would die and had no appetite for starting the gear grind all over. This mechanic would feel pretty bad too if PvP ends up being open world. Getting zerged down by a clan never feels good, but at least for now, no one else can loot your remains, so reclaiming those should be easy unless you get corpse camped. Regardless of what they do with combat, this mechanic should be removed. Dying already feels bad enough, but resetting dozens of hours of progress and opening the door to grief behavior like this is just not fun gameplay. But I am excited to see what they end up doing with the combat. Right now it's pretty jank, but I won't hold that against them. Magic could be pretty cool. I only got access to a heal spell from my crafted gear, but I saw ranged damage spells, summon spells, and some other spells I didn't really understand. But as the game is now, combat needs to be god tier to attract a player base that's willing to spend 90% of their time grinding for the other 10% of actual content. Some final thoughts. This game is designed to monopolize your attention. The goalposts for even the smallest dopamine hit are so far away that they require hours of time spent grinding. The little time wasters like needing to spam click to gather or being unable to interact with the game at all while crafting felt super bad, and I actively felt like my attention was being held hostage by some of these mechanics. On top of that, it's not very watchable content, which is why I didn't record most of it. The gameplay is addicting because those rare dopamine hits when you finally succeed on crafting a piece of gear after 5 hours, they feel good. But the design also feels kind of predatory to me. The game wanted all of my time and attention and held those feel-good moments hostage for hours of work. So this is not a game designed for casual solo play. It makes me wonder about the monetization strategy as well, because I see a ton of ways they could improve convenience and quality of life, or trap it behind paywalls. Time will tell in that regard. My other concern is for the replayability of the content. I mostly completed my structure, filling up my entire plot of land during my 50-hour playthrough. This finite cap to building means that within the first week or month, some players and clans will have essentially beaten the entire building minigame. So what comes after that? In one of my streams, I mused about having server-wide cataclysmic events like hordes of undead sweeping the land and raiding plots, or natural disasters that could disrupt the landscape. But as cool as that might be, it's a progress reset, and many gamers would be pissed to log in and find their home destroyed. So there are definite challenges to make this game engaging for the long term. So far, it seems like their strategy is to make progress so grindy that you have to play long term to see any results, which is not fun either. Overall, I enjoyed my time in PAX DEI despite literally quitting several times before getting over the pain points and testing more of the alpha. If this was the game at launch, those quit moments would be uninstall moments. But the alpha had so much potential that my investment felt worth it if we can finally get a good new MMO out of it. Hopefully, I'll get invited to the next test to see some of the improvements, but we'll see. I tried to be nice. Anyway, until next time, gamers.